Hello, everyone. Welcome to American Scouser's Morning Coffee with AmericanScouser.com. It's first thing in the morning. As always, we got the headlines. I got the coffee, and Trevor's with me this morning. Trevor, what do we got over there? Tea, coffee? You
Got tea
hydrating?
today.
There we go.
Tea today. Yes.
There we go. Now we're set. Okay, now we're set. Now you're really part of the ordeal. Okay.
Yeah.
Not a lot of interesting headlines today. I think media is dying for the international break to be over themselves, and I think this is kind of scary for the World Cup, because this is what you should be getting used to for the World Cup in terms of headlines, where they're kind of digging out some old stuff. I mean, this headline over here is about Liverpool frontrunners for outstanding teenager Manchester United have watched 46 times and stuff like that. Alan says, good morning, guys. He's got the tea going. There we go. I'm the only coffee guy, I think, this morning so far. Okay. So a couple of things to talk about. Let's start with the one in the middle right there. Gareth Southgate's treatment of Trent Arnold. What do you make of Trent not even being in the squads, have no chance to play, not even get a cameo, kind of like what Hando did at the end? Do you care? Does it worry you? Where are you at with that?
I think we talked about it as last time I was on, where it was almost beneficial to Liverpool to not have their guys getting a lot of minutes in these Nations League games, just because they have been so run down over these past couple of years. Just a mid-season 2-week break like that, the way it unfolded, was almost just a blessing. Yeah. But from Trent's perspective, you're a guy that's trying to rocket yourself up to being a figurehead in the English national team. And you get called in and granted, they have a bunch of talented right backs, but he's in that class, if not above them, and doesn't even get a second. It has to be a bit of a blow to your ego, but I personally don't think it's that big of a deal, but it seems to be a big one to him. And if it's something that's going to put him in a bad headspace, it's going to be a problem.
And that's, I think, the issue. Alan says he's sad for Trent, but glad for Liverpool. He gets a rest. Yeah, I think that's the issue. How does he take it more than anything else? Yeah. But at the same time, I mean, here's where I'm at with this. And we were talking about this on the podcast yesterday. I talked a bit about it in the morning as well. Is, with this form, it's really hard to make an argument and say there's no way Trent is not on this team. Whereas we could have done that last year. But if he's going by form, so if Southgate was going by form, you could say, hey, you know what? He hasn't been his best. So, okay, that's fair. But, I mean, there are guys over there who have not been their best either. Ian is with us this morning. Ian, Sparky, what's going on? Good morning. So it's not like Maguire is in his best form either. Or Shaw, for that matter.
I'm sure we'll talk about that game at some point.
So I mean, if they're in that lineup, and if Maguire does basically his thing, if you will, in the game, giving up goals and penalties and the whole works. I mean, he literally created that goal from beginning to end with the pass and the bad tackle and everything like that. So if that guy is there, it's kind of hard to understand the whole Trent situation. But I asked the guys on the podcast yesterday, do you think this almost is a good kick in the ass, or maybe a good motivation thing for Trent, especially in this October window before the World Cup?
It should be, in terms of just, okay, my national team doesn't believe in me and they think I'm out of form. So I'm just going to absolutely tear it up in this month where that fixture list is congested.
Yes.
And I'm sure Klopp wants to give him every single opportunity to go out there and really prove the brass of the Three Lions that Trent is the guy that you need in your team if you want to go win. And guys that are going to help you win are something that Southgate needs in mass numbers going into this tournament, seeing how much heat he's under.
Yeah, that's why I was like, I'm assuming this is almost like a semi-ideal situation for Klopp in some ways. A, like you were saying, they don't get as many minutes, and B, they almost get like an incentive to prove Southgate wrong or really earn their spots. I mean, I really think, I mean, obviously the World Cup squad is larger, and I feel like he will be called up there. I just don't know if he's going to get as many minutes based on, the way they're play. So let's go to that. Let's go to that game right there. See, Ian says happy for Trent to rest. We were talking about this yesterday. Let me ask you this. For the international games, I mean, me personally, I'm okay with them not going to breaks like this stupid break with like the Nations Cup and all that kind of stuff, or a friendly.
Yeah.
But when it comes to big tournaments, I do want these guys going there just for them. I mean, we root for the club, we root for these guys, and in a personal level,
yeah,
something like playing in the World Cup is a huge ordeal.
Yeah, I agree. The tune-up friendlies, Nations League, as much as they're trying to push Nations League as a thing that we need to take serious, it's not there yet, and it's going to take a while for it to get there. So I don't have any problem with them not playing in that. But yeah, the Euros and the World Cup is something that a lot of these guys have dreamed about their entire lives, and to even get one opportunity at it, I don't want to ever take that away from them.
I mean, this whole Nations Cup thing is basically FIFA trying to make money out of friendlies. So FIFA basically said, hey, you guys keep playing these friendlies. We're not getting shit for it. Why don't we make a little tournament? And I think that kind of like you see the games that US plays as friendlies, and I think they make more sense. This is what teams would have been doing right now, is playing teams. For example, England probably should be playing a team like Mexico, or like they should be playing Japan or Saudi Arabia and stuff to get ready for their group. That's what you used to do. Like if you had, I don't know, Ecuador in your group, you went and played Honduras or you played Colombia and stuff. You played a team in that similar style to kind of get ready for that game. Now they have no option but to play the other teams in their group, which end up being European teams. So I think it's almost like an unfair deal for European teams now.
Yeah, and they're playing European teams of similar caliber, so they're not getting those rotation opportunities where they can go play a San Marino and just throw out everybody that will be on your bench so they get minutes, and then you have just everybody firing on all cylinders ready to go. No, you have to kind of, you got Germany twice, so you have to really not do too much that rocks the boat too much.
Or Turkey, says Alan. Yes, they would be. They should be so lucky. But yeah, I feel like that's like because the way the tournament is starting too, they don't have this week or two period where they would play a couple of friendlies, get some rotation, get some minutes and stuff like that. So it's going to be an interesting World Cup in that sense alone. I mean, but as I watched that game yesterday with England against Germany, which was a really entertaining game to watch for a neutral, it was good. You could. A lot of goals, a lot of action as well. Maybe not in the first half as much, but especially the second half. You get to laugh at Maguire. It was like a good time overall. But as I kept watching, all I could think was, man, we're going to get basically outpriced from Bellingham.
Yeah, that was a bit of a bummer on that front. It's just kind of like selling yourself that you have a chance, and then you see kind of all the people that are Real Madrid kind of confidants and everything, they'll pan to them in the stands, and you're just going, oh no, they're gonna throw like 150 million.
Nothing to see here, please. Let it just go.
And you just all those hopes slowly just go and die in a corner.
I mean, even if we do get him, I think we're just gonna end up paying a lot more than we would have. But this is probably why Dortmund didn't let him go, because they knew that the World Cup would be a huge thing for bringing his price up higher. I mean, not to mention he's doing good in Bundesliga as well. So that was, if anything, if he does go to a team, I'm more worried that he would go to a team like City or United or something like that, who's going to pay some ridiculous wages and make it happen that way. That'd be my more concern than going to Real or somewhere. Because I feel like if he goes to Real or somewhere, maybe we can go to Real Madrid and say, hey, man, you guys have all these other midfielders. Why don't we have Camavinga or something like that instead? Because they have like an abundance.
I'll take Fede Valverde as a consolation prize.
Or that. I mean, that's the thing. It's just like they can only have so many, midfielders to make the player happy, at least in terms of like rotation and stuff like that. It's not like they're in a very, very tricky league. It's usually like a 2-team league, sometimes 3, usually 1. So that was my takeaway as I kept watching the game. Southgate does not really know what to do with these guys. And the moment he kind of let them loose, you could see when that team starts to attack, you get the most out of his players. But I know, I mean, after that game, Southgate is not like, see, man, that's how we should play. He's probably thinking, because we wore them down the first 70 minutes or something stupid like that.
Yeah, and I think it's what we talked about last time when we were comparing Berhalter and Southgate and how they've had success, but it's almost despite them sometimes, where there's never any adaptation for how the game's going, and it usually just comes with bringing on young players and just having them run like psychopaths, and then things go well. Because the way he sets it up is has to have just all of those bricks in front of Maguire and Pope to make them usable more than anything.
Yeah.
And then when, like you said, when the 70-minute mark comes and they just need to just throw caution to the wind, oh, what do you know? Attacking makes you score goals. No way.
And they're always done by that point.
It's wild. And when things go in and everybody starts going nuts, and then they got, like in this game particularly, they got the lead and then immediately reverted back to what they were doing that caused them to go down.
Yeah.
They gave up the tying goal, and had it been probably like a World Cup or a Euros game, I bet you there would have been a bit more of cheeky extra time there. If it wasn't Nations League, the end of the group, where they're just like, no, we're done with this. We want to go home. 3-3. Everybody take your point and go. They could have lost.
I think, yesterday Gally was predicting that Wales actually would win that group and not England. I really think that's like kind of like an easy group, and they will make easy work of it. The situation is, especially in a group like that, you have so much talent. We can send Leo, or we can then Stitch over there and then just put their paw on like names on the lineup, and you can throw them out there, and it's going to be a pretty competitive and semi-successful team in a group like that where it's not as challenging. It will become trickier when you play, I think, top teams. And I know it's clear that this team does not do well sitting back, but hey, I'm not an England fan, so what do I care, I guess. The wrong news right here. So Alan says Pochettino was there. Yes, I saw Pochettino and Jesus Perez looking for a gig watching the England-Germany game. I don't know. I don't know if Pochettino is it's a totally different breed, isn't it? Like managing a club and managing a national team. They always talk about Klopp with the Germany and stuff like that. I never see Klopp being able to successfully manage a national team. It's just not he's more about connecting and, the personal relations and stuff like that. So seeing a guy every 2 months is not really going to do it.
No, and that's always the perils of taking a national team job, is whether or not you can deal with those lulls where you don't have those guys under your thumb. I saw that message. Yeah,
it would have gone to penalties, and England will lose as usual. Yes, they are notorious for penalties.
But yeah, it's something where I don't know. I don't think Klopp has that type of demeanor, and I don't think really Pochettino does either. Granted, he's starting to move up the betting charts in terms of who will be the coach when Southgate eventually gets canned, because they think it's just after the World Cup he's done. Either he's going to get canned or quit.
I'm throwing this out here right now. Sean Douche as the England manager. I don't think people will be happy though. He's like another defensive dude. But yeah, I thought when I saw Pochettino, that's funny that Ellen says that, because I saw that and my thought actually was more like the opposite. I was like, they're walking around like saying like, anyone need a manager? We're still available over here, and trying to see. So because you would think if any team is going to make a change in terms of like coaching and stuff like that, end of October seems to be a great time. I mean, normally, people do this. If they're going to do it mid-season, normally they do it right before the international break and stuff like that. I mean, it doesn't get any longer than this for an international break. So if you're going to bring a new guy in and want him to kind of settle in and put in what he wants, I think this World Cup would be like perfect timing. So I felt like Pochettino is over there to keep himself in minds fresh over the month of October as people are looking to camp people. The only thing with Pochettino is, Pochettino is probably not going to go to, I don't know, Nottingham Forest or something like that. That's not his gig at this point. He will have to wait for a top team to open up, whether it's in La Liga or, there's only one top team in France. So he did that. That's done. So it would have to be, like, he didn't get the Chelsea gig. I thought he would be a front runner for that just because of the fact that he's a known asset name. I thought the American ownership would go for that. I was actually surprised. And honestly, it is probably smart on their part to go the other route as well. I mean, where do you see Pochettino next, for example?
God, it's something where, yeah, like I said, there's very few jobs where he would even take their call at this point, and a lot of them aren't even going to be hiring anytime soon. I'd say if Simeone ever left Atletico, that's one that he'd probably take at, because if you took all those guys and just made them not defensive anymore.
Ian says Leicester.
Hey,
not that we bash Brandon Rodgers in this morning show, but yes, it could be him. Yeah, like a job like that, Pochettino's going to be like, yeah, no thanks. I'll just wait. And I mean, for the longest time,
amount of money at him.
Looks like Ten Hag might be able to, at least has bought himself even more time with the start they've had, even if that doesn't go well and goes south or something like that. So he's bought himself time. Otherwise, I always thought he would end up in United, because that is more of a United move, for example, where bring in a name that is going to be kind of like a company guy too, not like a Conte or somebody like that who's gonna speak their mind. That's why I was amazed when they got Mourinho, a guy who kind of says what he thinks, because that's not really usually the United way. The ownership doesn't really want the manager to kind of go against the grain. But and yeah, Alan says the Watford job should be available in about 10 more games. But that's almost like you probably put it on your Google calendar, like every 10 weeks, you're like, Watford open. And then if you want to make a call, you can make a call. But yeah, it's funny that you mentioned that though, Alan, because I noticed them on the, like when the camera went to him, and then I was like, oh, he's there basically networking for his next gig more than anything else. So your boy is back and playing against Saudi Arabia, I guess. What do you make of that? Will he be signing his book on the sideline? What is he going to do? Not listen to the coach?
Yeah, I think it's something where they had, if he was healthy enough to play, they had to, after all this, just to kind of take the attention off of his words and put it more back on his play. I'm hoping that they can kind of make some sort of cohesive front three with that. And it seems that they really want Pepe with the form he's in at Groningen to get the gig up front, because just none of the other guys can score goals. Well, guys that they bring in, because for some reason Jordan Piefox scoring for fun in the Bundesliga is not worth even a call up to the team. But that's a different story for a different day.
You should have seen Gally last night. His blood pressure was an all-time high when I was I just said the US national team, and he just freaking like ran with it. So so going back to England, so this was a headline that I saw this morning, and I was like, England players still believe in Gareth Southgate, and that only improves their World Cup odds. Do England players really believe in Southgate, or do they really believe that their position is safe regardless of what happens with Southgate? because he's not going to bring in a dude that's doing really well Sunday in form. Everybody over there believes in the fact that Southgate's will stick with them regardless of what happens.
There's zero looking over your shoulder, which I think for the players themselves, they got to love, because you don't have to worry about if you have a bad run of games or anything. He's kind of set in stone who he's bringing to Qatar. And at that, why is there any incentive for these other guys that are trying to sneak their way in at the last second to really showcase themselves in that regard? Granted, yes, you want to do well for your club and everything, but I don't think there's any guys that will see Southgate in the stands and be like, oh, this is my day where I really need to go and show out. I don't think there's going to be that boost that a lot of other nations, if they saw their international manager in the stands, go, okay, this is the day I can show him that he should put me on that roster. And
I never understand that either, though. Like when people they're like, oh, he's in the stands, like that's the only game he's watching. Like, I mean, tapes, people, or not tapes anymore. I'm older, but the game tapes in the old days. But I mean, he can watch whatever the hell games he wants. He just happens to show there if he gets to watch 4 at the same time or something like that. But yeah, I always laugh, and they're like, he's in the stands. Like, okay, good. Like he could have watched this at home probably too. But yeah, I think you're right though. You see the guy there, you're like, I could score 5 goals today. It's not gonna freaking matter. I'm not gonna go anyway. He's gonna freaking pick this guy over me. So let's talk as the last one. Let's talk a little bit about this. So England and Manchester United center back criticized more than ever seen in football, says Luke Shaw. So first of all, no. And second of all, I guess yes. And is that unfair on Maguire? Is it just because his price tag basically brings all the criticism? I mean, if Maguire was still in Leicester, he would not be facing all this. He signed that big money contract. He was United's Van Dijk or whatever, and obviously he's not. And they kept trying to make him, and I almost feel like United have really screwed him over, making him the captain, making him the headline, kind of really riding that wave and throwing him under the bus to the media more and more and more instead of protecting him.
Yeah, it's easy to make fun of him, the big old frying pan head. But it's a guy that if you're a fan of England, you have to just worry about how diminished his confidence is, because whether it's in the league, it used to be where the national team was his refuge, where it was he always had the protection. He never had to worry about bad games because he had enough confidence in himself and had enough protection in front of him to cover up his deficiencies. Now, the defensive midfield is a bit more filled with guys that will move forward a bit more and not just sit back and do that. Like the Bellinghams of the world are not going to sit there and defend for 90 minutes. You're not going to get those type of guys to do that work for you. Granted, they can, they're just not gonna. And for him now, it's the fucking snowball rolling down the hill at this point. That first mistake led to the second mistake, led to the goal, and then the second one where he's just completely on roller skates, can't do anything about it, and just sits there and is immediately head in his hands. And you're going, this guy should not be playing, and he should not be excluded from the team or anything, but they have to find a way to get this guy's confidence back. And that goes back to what you were saying with the friendlies, where they would have just an absolute team that they could smash.
Yeah.
And he would not concede a goal. And even if it was something where they didn't concede a goal because the other team didn't get the ball past midfield, that still is a clean sheet on your record, something that can help build your psyche back. And he didn't have a single chance this entire Nations League campaign to get any of that confidence back. United's doing him no favors because they're just bringing in guys that want to attack, and leaves him getting yelled at by De Gea every 4 seconds. It's a guy that is just broken, and nobody is taking any steps to try to fix him.
Alan says for Maguire to put his head in his hands, they need to be huge, bloody hands. And yes, I mean, the thing with him at
he
the
does
same
get a
time,
good pump when he puts his head in.
it's just his chin. He has not helped his case either. Like by closing ears after who did he score against? Some poor soul they were playing, and he scored. Was it Albania or somebody like that? He scored against, and he was all like celebrating, like dissing the fans a little bit and stuff. And he hasn't helped his cause either. And he's clearly now you can see, and that's why you need a good scouting department to evaluate where he's built. I guarantee you if Maguire goes back, and I think this will eventually happen, he'll go back to a team that does sits back maybe more, or actually at least like more often than not. When they play the top 6, they're going to sit back and stuff like that. I mean, it could be a Leicester. It could be, I don't know, I don't want to say Brighton. They even play more attacking football, but like a team like that where he is going to sit back and he is going to have his defensive midfielders sit a bit lower as well to help him out. And he's fine there. He's, he has the slab head. He's going to kick stuff out, like head stuff out of there that comes into the box. He can do that. But when he is got space and when he's isolated, he's horrendous and he kind of gets exposed. So it's not, but I mean, is he the most criticized more than ever seen before? I don't know. And I think he brings, like, to say, some of that on himself. Here's a good question, actually. Southgate should have never got the job. Which club would hire him tomorrow? So if Southgate is gone after the World Cup, which you would think anything less than a win now goes kind of like that way. And Ian says if Maguire goes to World Cup, he'll get crucified. Well, get your crosses out then, because he's definitely going. And I, even Gally was saying, and I believe it too. I guarantee you he will start the first game. Where I know who they're playing, but he will start their first game. I see Southgate's next gig as Major League Soccer, for example. I can't see any Premier League team going for Southgate's. And if you look at just the resume, like if you knew you just like landed from the moon or come from outer space, and you're looking at his resume, you're like, oh, you've done a lot over here with the England national team and stuff. But then, like you're saying, you don't know it's despite him just by looking at the resume. But anybody in the football world would know that. I mean, who would hire Southgate? Major League Soccer team is like one thing I thought of where it's not a lot of pressure, and it's he can probably manage over here.
Yeah, and I think it's going to be somewhere that just wants to have the former England manager as their manager. And I'd say MLS is a place that would, one of those bigger markets would take a look at him. Scotland would have a run at him just because if you put him at either one of the two old firms and then he fails, they go like, yeah, our guys are better than them because we brought in their quote unquote best manager and he stunk. I don't know if they would do those to themselves, but I don't know. Spite makes you do something sometimes.
Alan says Southgate for the Turkish national team, maybe. You know what? Just for that.
They're already dead.
Yeah, you're in a freaking timeout just for that, because do not even put that into the outer, like into the into the universe out there, because God forbid it will happen. I almost feel like any other national team, I can't see a lot of national teams saying, you know what? Yeah, like this country wants to play defensive, and this is the kind of guy
you'd have to go very far down the
but rank. What kind? I mean, okay, it doesn't go for a lot further down than Turkey, but Turkey is not going to, like, nobody in Turkey is going to be like, oh, he plays really defensive soccer, we should get him. Like, no country is ever going to go for a guy that is known for being defensive. I mean, unless you have this squad where we have two fast guys up top, we can really play counter, we should get him over here. I just can't see a scenario where a country would be, when these federations do these appointments, they normally, well, apart from England, apparently, they go for some of the excitement. And, when you change a name, you want at least the first couple of years to, you want to appoint a new guy and be like, whoo, I'm down for 2 years. Whatever he does, I really don't care. At least for 2 years, we're good, because the initial excitement will keep going. I can't see a country where the country will be excited and hopeful when Southgate comes in control. They were like, all right, we're good now. The federation, I mean, no federation, I don't think would do that move, but Ian says Ipswich. Maybe that could be a thing. So your boys, US plays today, correct?
Yep, they play this afternoon. They are taking on Saudi Arabia. It should be boring.
Yeah, honestly, like even yesterday, I'm kind of like, I just can't wait to go back to league competition and stuff, because you see a lot of players going through the motions. And I think especially these second games, there's a lot of waiting for it to be over with. Kind of like you're saying when it was like 3-3. Ellen says, who was your man of the match? I think Bellingham overall. Dude is everywhere, man. Yeah, we should have. I mean, I wish we would have sealed the deal. And I know it wasn't like, I really don't feel like, unless they ask for, 120, 150, knowing that's what is going to be his valuation down the road. I don't think it was a matter of, we didn't offer, like, give enough money. I think Dortmund just said, you know what, we'll just wait. His value is only going to go up. And that's what
hoping that the World Cup gives him that old James Rodriguez bump, where he goes from being a 20 million pound guy to like a 65 one.
And, it's very well could be, because, like I say, they're in an easy group. They're going to win some games. He's going to do his thing. And, barring an injury, I don't see why he wouldn't. Well, Trevor, it's time for the second cup of Joe. You're with us tomorrow morning as well?
I'll be here.
All right. Well, thanks a lot for everybody for joining us. Finish your tea, coffee, go grab the second cup, and hope everybody has a great Saturday. Go watch US Saudi Arabia or something like that. Probably not. Just get some work done and
do
stuff.
Get
ready for the weekend.